Dance with me.
The invitation to dance comes with one to forget why they're here. And sometimes it happens.
Dance around the room.
Sometimes 60-year-old Charles Dennis gets lost in a rhythm until he remembers how desperately he wants to keep moving.
I find myself really getting caught up in the music, and you forget about having to make the movement to be sure that your arm is getting the message from your brain to move this way. They don't know what causes it. It'd be great to be part of the victory over it.
There is no cure for Parkinson's, a neurological disorder where the ability to move degenerates over time. But something about dancing seems to help. And until now, science couldn't begin to explain why. Why damaged signals from brain to limb suddenly seem to connect.
Biggest ole you got! Ole!
Anecdotally, what the students tell us and what we see is that maybe, new neural pathways are being created to movement.
You gonna dance with me?
Because people sometimes who come in walking with walkers and are very unstable, halfway through the class will start waltzing through the room.
Sarah Robichaud has been running Dancing with Parkinson's classes in the Toronto area for nearly a decade. When researchers asked to turn her class into a science experiment, no one said no.
They love doing research. The people who come to these classes, I can't tell you, they are so open and so courageous and so willing to do anything that will help themselves and help others with the progression of this disease. So whatever they can do, they will do it to help.
Okay, Charles, so we're going to start with putting the EEG cap on your head.
Okay.
Charles Dennis was diagnosed a year ago and is willing to try anything that helps. It's why he's part of this, the first study of its kind that is scanning the brains of people with Parkinson's immediately before and after a 1-hour dance class.
I was just like, well, there's two things you can do. You can either work with what you've got, or you can just lay down and let it win. And that sounded really boring. I wanted to try and do what I could. And, there's that kind of hope in your mind that, well, I'll keep fighting this, and then the big cure will just, they'll find the answer, and then you're there. And if you gave up 6 months too early, you'd be done.
Raise your arms directly in front of you with lots of space between your fingers.
There's no real treatment for Parkinson's other than medication to help with tremors that set in. But researchers from Toronto's York University believe dance can rebuild the brain's pathways, the ones that tell the body to move. And they're out to prove it. Joseph D'Souza is the neuroscientist leading the study.
I think the benefit to dance is that it's using your brain too. So you're remembering cognitive steps in time, usually to an external stimulus of music or a piano you'll hear in this set. And what's great about it is all these things are very cognitively demanding. And so it's like doing brain training with dance.
When she's not in class, Alice Betty Rustin practices in the hallway. Her apartment is too small. Every exaggerated shuffle and swing is hard work. Rustin found out she has Parkinson's 5 years ago.
So the dancing has helped you physically?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And it has helped me mentally and emotionally. Not just emotionally, but mentally as well.
How so?
Well, because when you're dancing or when you're doing steps or even arm movements, you have to think about it. It just doesn't come naturally. So that's good for me. It becomes like a teacher, a self-teacher when I'm on my own.
In 3, 2, 1, go!
25 Canadians are diagnosed with Parkinson's every day. The risk increases as people age.
Thank you.
As fate would have it, Rustin has been an advocate for years. She got involved when her father-in-law was diagnosed decades ago.
Here we go. I'll just be outside.
Never thinking one day she would be part of the search for answers.
We're not going to progress in finding out how Parkinson starts, or why Parkinson starts, or are we ever going to find a cure? Are we ever going to find better treatments? All those things can't happen if we don't have patients like me who give them data to work with.
There is evidence already that exercise, especially strenuous activity, builds muscle and brain power in people with Parkinson's. Dennis works out regularly, and while all this makes him stronger, he's convinced dancing does something more.
I feel like I'm smoother in things that I do. I have an easier time in the dance with knowing that my brain is sending the message to move in this, and that my arm is going to move the way my brain tells it to. The goal would be for my movement to be natural, to not have to think about it, to not have to go, okay, I need to move this far and then change my arm and go like this. It should just be able to do that.
Everything go well today?
The data on dancing is preliminary and promising. Everyone's progress has been pooled together over the last 3 years. And D'Souza recently presented his early findings at an international conference on Parkinson's.
Perfect.
He's found a 1-hour dance class results in a boost in alpha brain waves. That renewed brain activity may explain why most volunteers show an improvement in their balance and gait. The question now, can the effects last?
So we want to see whether it's a neuroprotective thing that's happening as a function of dance. So we're not only interested in what's happening in the brain, but how it's happening and whether it's neuroprotective over time.
Heel, toe, stomp.
D'Souza's research is still in its infancy, and there are only about 50 people in his study. But what he's learned so far is already informing experts in the field.
I think we have to keep pushing the envelope. You know, we can't just be content with a sort of status quo. It's not adequate. People with Parkinson's are suffering. We've got to find ways. We can't stop and wait. And you're not having any side effects from the medication?
Dr. Galit Kleiner runs the Movement Disorder Clinic at Toronto's Baycrest Hospital. She's on top of all the medical interventions that help her patients. But she also pioneers the use of other therapies too.
Okay, go ahead.
This exoskeleton suit robotically facilitates movement. The external cues fire off messages to the brain to get legs moving, not unlike what dancing does.
We know that there's sort of an internal rhythm in all of us, but especially in Parkinson's disease, that rhythm is impaired. The motor circuits of actually moving are intact, but accessing those circuits may not be intact. And so music and even pacing with a metronome may be able to access those motor pathways.
Okay, and stay there.
Kleiner says there aren't huge clinical trials to draw on to prove how well non-medical therapies work, and she's not waiting for them. She recommends dancing to her patients because it seems to help and already proves it gives people hope.
So that's huge. You know, all of us need hope. All of us need to be socially integrated, to be accepted. I think when you live with a neurodegenerative condition, especially like Parkinson's, which is so visible, people increasingly become socially isolated. It's very, very difficult to cope. Dancing provides them enjoyment. It provides them interactions with other people. It provides them beauty. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think that's a key to coping and living with a chronic illness.
For Dennis, that illness is still an unfamiliar and frightening companion, but he clings to what the study may still reveal.
Pass my thanks around the room.
Researchers want to follow the class for at least 5 more years to see if dancing actually halts the progression of the disease.
There's a saying that with Parkinson's that you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So I want to maintain as long as I can. And, you know, if I'm part of that cure or advancement, why wouldn't I want to be? Why wouldn't I want to do that?
It is so often a dance between hope and despair. But coming here, Dennis says, is an exercise of faith, whether or not the science follows.
And bow or curtsy to your partner.
Joanna Rumiliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
Hey.